on Discord or anything. Basically,
Cool.
whomever is subscribed is subscribed, kind of thing. Cool. So Nativewind updates. First and foremost is going to be just the beta stuff. You mentioned that is probably going to be a bit delayed because of the Expo SDK.
Yeah, so I was hoping to get it out with the SDK. But there's just some like last minute stuff we need to kind of clean up there, and I'm just kind of busy working on the SDK at the moment. So very soon we'll have people in the public's hands for it. And we'll have the release announcement notes probably out Tuesday or Wednesday next week, which is kind of like detailing all the changes, the upgrade guides, the breaking changes, just to kind of get that people's expectations for what's in plan. Because like one of the things that we're doing is we're going to upgrade all the major versions for everything. So that's going to require React 19, the new architecture, the reanimated version 4, which is going to be interesting. Back when we started this new version of Nativewind, the expectation was going to be for SDK 53 to have reanimated 4 in it, because it was just going to enter beta at the start of 2005. We thought it'd be maybe ready for SDK 53, but reanimated 4 is still in beta. So we will be going out the door with
the beta,
the new version of Nativewind requiring the beta version of reanimated. So we have to update our instructions on how to, if you're using Expo, the latest, how to update your version of reanimated and use the new version there, which is a very simple process. And it's actually a process that Expo recommends people doing, but it essentially means that people won't be able to use Expo Go going out the door immediately. Pun not really intended. But it just means you'll have to use the Expo development clients, which is the recommended way to work with Expo anyway. It just adds some additional step for new people trying out Expo and Nativewind for the first time. But it's better in the long term for people. So
I actually had a question about this. So I was talking to Jay of Legend List recently. He had been trying out Nativewind for desktop stuff, and he mentioned there's a lot of opportunity to just like really improve the overall desktop experience. So, but he had mentioned that he was running into some trouble setting up Nativewind there, and ultimately he resolved it, I think, by simply just removing reanimated. And so I was hoping you could clarify the relationship a bit more between reanimated and Nativewind. Why does that even reasoning make sense as to?
Yeah, so reanimated isn't optimized for the desktop platforms, like just putting it out there. So I know that there are some existing issues with it there, but that's kind of like outside the scope of like Nativewind. So like the goal of Nativewind as a project is to just enhance what is already there. Like we don't try and add new functionality. Like reanimated adds new animation drivers to React Native. It replaces the native animations with its own animation engine and adds its own multi-threaded kind of concept. Nativewind, we don't want to do that. We just want to kind of be like this transition or this translation layer that says like, okay, here's your CSS, here's your React Native styles. We can do the complex logic in between. But obviously animations are part of that. And so that's where we rely on reanimated, where we just want to be that transition, keeps saying transitional, translation
is the word you're looking for.
I feel like there's a better word I should be using, where we compile the CSS to reanimated styles. And that's all that we're trying to do. Previously, before in the current version of Nativewind, that requires us to go kind of like low level-ish with reanimated and get into the concepts of like shared values and mutables, and kind of handhold Reanimated in how it does its styles. In the next version of Nativewind in V5, that we're simply just going back to being like, here's CSS, here's a new style object, and it kind of translates, so it becomes much simpler. I think the reason why people are having problems on the desktop platforms is just a lack of visibility in the area. I think that there's a lot. It's a fairly new space, and I don't think a lot of people have been reporting issues or bugs, things like that. And it could have just been how we're using Reanimated currently doesn't work well in these desktop environments, like just because we're going a little bit low leveler than how most people would be. So maybe we're just holding it in a way that doesn't work properly. And yeah, that's probably most likely the case, because we're doing things with Reanimated that you probably shouldn't be doing in the current version of Nativewind, which is like core typical Nativewind, doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing.
It's on brand.
Yeah, on brand. But like that's the whole point around version 5, is that we're fixing, or like things have changed in the ecosystem. We're able to not do these hacks and actually do things properly. So I'll probably actually reach out to Jay and talk to him about what issues, and get him on the early demo and try that out, because on the desktop environment there's so much room for improvement there. Same with Apple TV. I'm going to talk about desktop and Apple TV at the same time. So Expo recently added support for Apple TV to the SDK. But Apple TV is such a different beast to all the other platforms, and how you do things, how the components work. And even just like the concept of like focus styles, I know was like massive. Like just that the fact that Nativewind had focus-based styling available was really big for the Apple TV crowd. And so it does a lot of easy wins there. But we're still not perfect in the Apple TV world, because they care about like media queries more than anyone, especially like container queries. And like the shape of the TV really defines the appearance of your app. You have like different pointer devices. Like, are you like on a Sony TV or Amazon TV? Like, do you do long press or short press? Like, really changes based upon the device that you're on. And then the other thing about TV that I didn't realize is that it's not exclusive to TVs. It also includes things like smart fridges, or any sort of smart appliance is kind of in this like kind of TV, because they're just built for the TV operating systems, right? And that TV operating system is on many, many, many different things.
I thought we were done with the smart fridges, but I guess not.
Oh no, we're still there. Hey, my washing machine keeps complaining that it's not connected to the Wi-Fi. I'm not connecting it to the Wi-Fi.
You're not giving it that power?
No, I'm not giving it that power. So yeah.
Okay.
There's just needs to be a lot of visibility into these other platforms. I think there's a lot we could do there. I also think that there's like things that they do that are common there should be done on mobile as well, like this sort of like responsive design. But I think like as well, the way they work colors. So on the desktop, you don't really want to hard code in colors as much. Instead, you want to use platform colors and use the colors from the operating system, just because accessibility and people customize the appearance of things on desktop way more than on a mobile device. So like the operating system can actually like change how the colors work depending on type of monitor that you have, and like different sort of settings that you have. So hard coding in colors isn't always like the best idea. Instead of using like red, you want to use like the system red, because it might actually like subtly change based upon complex things that appear on desktop and not on mobile, which is kind of interesting.
Speaking of platform specific things or whatever, Hotshot here is asking about Gap working properly, and I think we've discussed that in the past, being that I think it was a React Native issue.
Yeah,
Not a
so I guess
Nativewind
this
one.
kind of goes back to what I said about Nativewind before. We don't do anything different. So all
Yeah.
what we do is change a style from being a CSS object into a React Native object, and we pass that into React Native. We can't influence how React Native renders that out. So we can't make gap work properly. The biggest thing about this is like shadows. As soon as everyone loves shadows and everyone wanted to use like the Tailwind shadows, but for the longest time, React Native, its shadow properties were just like broken. At least now the docs admit that they were broken as well. So they just didn't work very well. There's a lot of like edge cases and scenarios. So if you have a problem with gap not working properly, I would definitely try and replicate it with inline styles and see if it works properly there as well, because you might just be running into a limitation of React Native. And you have to remember that React Native's Flexbox model isn't a complete Flexbox model. They only do certain properties, and Gap is fairly new in the world of React Native. And so there's probably a couple of shortcomings or a couple of little bugs that are still around there. So it's probably not Gap per se. It's probably a combination of different things that's kind of throwing you off the React Native rendering engine there.
Yeah, that actually sort of segues into. I just wanted to talk about the docs update for a moment. The current issue we're running into, we're just sort of like working through some build error stuff and Fuma doc stuff where the markdown is not being applied properly, which you might have seen in the Discord channel. Barring that, as I'm working through the subsequent pages, the actual content of the pages, I've really been thinking about and having some conversations about what the role of docs even are in 2025 with respect to like developer tooling. I have to imagine. So I'm adding in the Vercel analytics to the current website, and it'll sort of be reflected on the next website because I just want to understand a bit more about how just people are using it and which things they're trying to like better understand. We'll get a better grasp on that, and hopefully that'll inform what we choose to spend our time on. But my gut read is that they're using Nativewind for what it's meant to be, which is just like they're initializing Nativewind in the project to go read the Tailwind documentation. So all our documentation really should be primarily focused on is highlighting the differences where it's not the same, and otherwise just fully externally link into the relevant Tailwind versioning, right? Because I don't think that we want to set ourselves up in such a way where we're going to have to continue putting a lot of like a tremendous amount of work into making sure everything is up to date. So it's sort of like a high level takeaway that I've had over the last week. There's more to it, but I just wanted to get your take on that sort of high level view of the documentation and the purpose it serves.
Yeah, I guess there's a weird line there, and I feel like we haven't found that properly. I'm still of the opinion that Nativewind is just this translational.
You got this. At some point, you're going to figure out what word you're trying to come up with.
Yeah. And therefore, like, when I wrote it, I expected people who would be using the library to be already familiar with React Native and React Native stylings and quirks, and that they would be, because I didn't expect it to get this big. And I expected it to just be like, okay, this is just going to be good within the React Native community, a different way that they can approach things. But what we're finding now is that as the library grows, a lot of people are entering React Native for the first time. And then they look at the styles and they see that it's all inline styling and they have to handle all the conditionals themselves. And their first thought is, fuck that. What's an easier way of doing this? And they were using Tailwind before. So before they look for Tailwind for React Native, and they start using React Native that way. And so they don't have that inherent knowledge of how React Native works and its quirks because they've never used React Native before. It's kind of interesting because, my day job is working on Expo, and I'm actually having this exact same problem with Expo at the moment.
Just like a different angle.
Yeah, just a different thing, just with the SDK libraries and the things I'm working on there, where a lot of people are picking up now React Native for the first time. It's getting more popular. They turn to Expo and they go, cool, I want to use Expo. I expect it to work like the other web frameworks that I've used before. And then it doesn't because it's not the web, and that creates a little bit of friction. And we're having this exact same problem here. So there is that sort of crowd that we need to cater for better. So at the moment, Nativewind is very much like, do you know how React Native works? Cool, we can add onto that experience. We do a very bad job at catering to this new crowd who just are not aware of this. And unfortunately, Meta doesn't really help out this crowd as well. Like the React Native documentation is very much just a reference guide and not as much as an informative guide. And so a lot of these things aren't quite as explained properly by anyone. Like you have to go into like Stack Overflow or Discord to kind of like work out exactly how things work. So I'm not too sure like where we kind of go there. A good example is like font families and how font families work. It's like a black magic with React Native that no one really understands properly. I know we've talked about this, but
we have,
just no one kind of explains it. Shadows were another great one. Up until like the last like 6 months when the docs finally got updated that shadows don't work properly, no one could quite properly explain, pinpoint why they work sometimes and why they couldn't work other times. And so I think maybe we need to do a better job in our docs at maybe just adding some paragraphs of text just to say like, hey, this has some known issues or something like that. Like maybe even if it's not in the docs, like maybe like Expo has a FYI repo of commonly known things that you might run into that they can link to for like repeated answers to things. Like that could be our docs, or we could just have something like that of just like link to this and stuff. I don't know. I think it's fine being in the docs as well. But we should go into a little bit of more detail about that. We've already kind of got that. Like we've got the quirks guide in the docs that explain like the difference between like the display units and the pixels, how Flexbox is different, how Yoga is different. We could go a little bit more in detail about those sort of things as well, kind of explain a little bit how they're kind of different there.
I think that we definitely need to include that stuff. I think the next step beyond that would be to find a way to index that information in such a way that LLMs can also be mindful of that kind of thing. Like we obviously can't expect React Native to step up to the plate at all. I'm going to have to think about how we might be able to bridge the gap without like sort of overstepping too much to explain, convey ideas from React Native to folks who are coming in from web, who have an understanding of Tailwind, right? And that's what draws them to Nativewind in the first place, right? So that's going to be a little bit tricky. I don't have immediate thoughts as to that right away, but my core thought over the last 2 weeks has been link to outside documentation and treat Nativewind as this like layer that wraps something that people, they want to use the Tailwind docs. They want to use all that stuff. How can we enable that as much as possible and have our docs primarily focus on the ways in which it's different? And
we've got all these community leaders now of other people. we could probably actually all combine our efforts and work with them to create a separate website that kind of detail the styling quirks of React Native and the differences there. Because it is a little bit frustrating that you have to like go searching through GitHub issues. And then the issue where you want to find these issues are not in the React Native repo either, because React Native itself doesn't deal with the styling for a lot of its stuff. It relies on Yoga, the layout engine for React Native. So if you want to find out like the problem with your gap property and why it's not working properly, you shouldn't be looking in the React Native repo. You should be looking in the Yoga repo for those answers. But a new person is not going to know that. Like they're not going to understand how Native works,
know what Yoga is,
how React Native works, and how Yoga is. So yeah, maybe we should get together with Unistyles and Tamagui. Yeah, they all have the same. We all have the same problem because we're all doing exactly the same thing. We all use the underlying layout engine and start documenting the differences from web. And we could probably actually get Nick from Meta. He's the main developer on Yoga now, to kind of help with this as well.
React Native Web Nick, or do you mean another Nick?
No. Nick, I forget his last name. It's like Gurman or something. So I'm just getting his name off memory. What is it? Oh man, I cannot pronounce his last name. Gurliman?
Something like that.
He's the guy who works at on Yoga. He actually stepped off the plate because Yoga was unmaintained for a very long period of time, and the community was getting very annoyed. And like, thanks to Nick, like, put in the effort to actually like bring Yoga back to life, update it from version 2 to version 3, and his latest thing, it's been his like goal for a while, is web conformance. Yoga actually has 2 different modes in it now. Has like its normal mode and web conformance mode, which is like all the bug fixes that they're slowly introducing and fixing up with each version of React Native. So like a lot of these fixes probably are like on the way, but we should be working with him to kind of like help document and get people to understand how this works.
Okay. I can see what I can do in the way of getting Unistyles, Tamagui together. Maybe there's an opportunity to have a shared conversation.
There's also, see if I can, this works. Man, I don't know why my public comments don't work from here, but there is a Yoga playground as well where you can actually use Yoga in the browser. So if there is something weird, we should be able to actually like link to the playground and document. Like, show the differences.
Highlight the different. Yeah. I was going to ask, how do you mentioned that Expo Router is also facing this sort of issue at a high level. What do you guys have plans for how to like address that for those folks, or are you just sort of still trying to figure out how best to handle that?
So we've got plans, and they're in the way at the moment. It's a combination of reducing API surface, a better documentation, and also just changing our philosophy about the library as well. So Expo Router is very much, did you use React Navigation before? Here's a different way to use React Navigation. But you still need to understand how React Navigation works as a library. We don't document React Navigation. We just say like, go to React Navigation and learn it from there. We are now, as of this SDK version 53, we're now going to start deviating in functionality from React Navigation into ways that make it easier, more intuitive for people. So you don't need to know about some of these quirks. We're going to pick what we think are better defaults for people. Moving forward and trying to simplify stuff. So that one's a little bit different just because React Navigation has just like quirks to it, how it works. I'm not saying that these are good or bad. They're just like, decisions that someone made at some point in time that I think work well when you look at it in a vacuum of just React Native, but Expo Router is now being used on more platforms, got a bigger crowd, and so therefore we're trying to like shift our the way it works to better accommodate this like broader audience a little bit. Like I know like people say like dumb it down, but it's really not that. It's just kind of making it more tying into people's already known knowledge about stuff. So like a good example of this is Expo Router is URL based. So like we assume that every screen has a URL and that you can envision your app very similar to a web page, that if you change the URL, you go to these sort of pages. And when you go to navigate to a new page, it's like you're changing the URL. But React Navigation doesn't work like that. React Navigation is a tree where each node in the tree individually controls its parents. It doesn't have this global URL of what things are.
Mm-hmm.
Like each page could be controlled a little bit differently based upon where it is inside the tree. But that concept of like this tree-based navigation is not very intuitive for a new person coming to React Native. And we've kind of seen that in like the state of React Native surveys that React and just like comments from people that navigation in React Native is way more complicated than say like Swift UI or Jetpack. Like if you were a native developer and you've been doing native navigation for a long time, and then you come to React Native, suddenly like for some reason now navigation is way more complicated and way more like harder to wrap your head around. Mm-hmm. So we're just trying to like change the mindset of like how you approach it. It's still doing the same thing, but you're just approaching it from a different angle.
Right.
And so like I kind of want to take that philosophy with Nativewind a little bit as well, because we always assumed that the audience was
mindful of React Native.
Yeah. Like I'm trying to think, I don't like you often say like, I don't want to say like we just weren't really like newbie friendly is like the easiest way, even though that's probably now like our core audience of like new people coming to React Native. So we need to adjust that. And like that's always why the biggest complaint has been like the setup of Nativewind is very hard, because it's a lot of people coming to React Native for the first time, getting bombarded with setup that's like quite strange for them. But for experienced React Native people, you know, they're used to jumping into the Metro config, into plist files, up, you know, changing things all over the place in their app. Like it's not that different for them. So yeah, it's just like the matching people's expectations of like where they're coming from is kind of what it is.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, a couple things to think about there then. Yeah, those outside of the new logo, which I did want to just sort of, I think you mentioned you thought it was quite good. But that's pretty close. Like what I showed you is pretty close to the end result. Like I'll certainly refine out, like I think I'd like to have a new word mark that is actually, are you fixated on the capital N, capital W thing? Does that matter to you at all?
No, I don't even know why I did it in the first place. Okay. And I think I flip-flopped between doing
like just no capital W and
or even if it's just like, I think I've done it all in lowercase or all over the place. I can't even remember why I did the capital W at the time, but yeah.
Who knows? Well, okay, so so if you're cool with the new logo, which I'll not reveal here, but you know, pretty shortly it'll be the new thing. The only thing I really want to nail down is how it sort of fits alongside the word. But these are pretty minor things relative to the stuff we're doing with the docs. I've sent Nikita a breakdown of the content, like the layout for the landing page. And so he's going to be working on that now predominantly. And given what you said about the delay of the beta, I think that's good. We can kind of use that to sort of also have the doc, like a couple more days with the docs.
Yeah, it'd be good to get them both out together.
Yeah. How much additional time, like, are you done with the Expo SDK stuff? Is it still going on? How much
Still
are
kind
we
of going
pushing
on
out? Okay.
at this stage. Yeah.
So do we want to call it like a week, 2 weeks for the beta?
I mean, I don't want to put a timeline on it because I'm terrible with timelines, and I just get disappointed
That's true.
people
That's
if I
true.
don't do it. But I will definitely have the document listing all the changes and kind of everything that we've talked about kind of there, just so people are aware of it. They don't have to be listening to YouTube videos or these conversations to kind of piece together everything that will be changed, because we're still kind of getting people asking like, hey, how bad would the upgrade be? I want to kind of get people's expectations kind of ahead of time of what it will be, especially that it's going to require a reanimated upgrade, and that's not going to be part of the SDK. Just adds like an extra step for upgrades for people there.
That is actually one of the as a last note, something that I've seen recently is people getting a bit confused about which reanimated version to be using. I have been recommending a fixed version, simply because it has proved to be a fairly sensitive thing in the past. I think if you know that as you're working through anything, that for version 4, a certain version of reanimated should be utilized, just ping me and I'll do the update or whatever.
Yeah. So I want to avoid saying that they should be using a certain version. However, we probably should document that in the land of React Native, having pins dependencies is a very good idea, especially because for anything that uses native dependencies with native code, because anytime that native code changes, you need to do a whole new development build for your clients to work properly. And so anything that uses native code should be pinned to a version, just so people aren't running different versions of native code locally or different. Because because it's changing in node modules doesn't mean that it's changed inside your simulator and things like that. So Expo already recommends that you pick a version of reanimated and pin it. They recommend using the SDK version. So the SDK is set to a major, minor, and a major and a minor version. I think the patch, maybe for reanimated, even the patch is fixed. I can't remember, but at least the major and the minor is locked. And then, but you can manually upgrade, but you should be locking it as you upgrade, because it is a native module. And you want to make sure everyone is running the same version of the native module.
Yeah, the confusion I think largely stems from when they're using Expo Router or something, or the SDK, and they're seeing the version of reanimated locked in there to be one version, while with Nativewind we're recommending another, and so people shoot me the question of like, should it be this one or that one kind of thing, and I'm inclined to want to just match whatever the Expo SDK is utilizing at any moment in time.
Yeah, I would like to get into that pattern as well, of like recommend what Expo recommends. But yeah, obviously we're going to be recommending a whole major version plus, so we're going to have to document that properly.
Okay, cool.
I'll have to check in with Software Mansion to see when the actual proper release was going to be. I know it was originally going to be soon, but I think they're delayed as well. Like they have I know that their resources have been taken up with a lot of the stuff in the new architecture change. So
really,
okay. So hopefully that bottleneck, and they'll be able to get that out of beta soon as well.
At some point, I'll find time to make a contribution to React Native Reanimated. I remember they gave me the shirt at App.js last year, and they were like, that means you now have to make like only contributors to React Native Reanimated get that shirt. So I'm long overdue for a contribution to React Native Reanimated. Maybe I'll soon step up to the plate.
Oh man, I'm going to be doing some contributions to React Native screens soon, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, I've heard a lot about that one. I haven't really looked into why people are talking about it recently, but there's a lot of buzz on Twitter.
It's just new architecture. Changed a lot of things. Yeah, that's all.
All right. Well, yeah, I think that's everything. We're going to try to keep these a little bit shorter for future reference. And yeah, if you have any questions, I recommend shooting them in the Discord, and we'll sort of answer them asynchronously. But thank you for joining, and we'll catch you next week.
All right. Cheers. See you guys.
Yep.